Don't mess with my Jesus. All right? You can make fun of anybody but Jesus. And I'll say this. Let me say this in all fairness, right? So Netflix has come out with this series. It's like I guess it's a comedy. They call it a Brazilian comedy. I don't even know what that means. But it's depicting Jesus as being homosexual and also his mother Mary as smoking blunts and weed or whatever you want to call it. And people are outraged, somewhat rightfully so, right? If you are paying for a service at Netflix, I can see you being outraged and wanting to petition to have them remove that off of the system if you're a paying customer. If they refuse to concede to that, I can see you getting off the system, just not giving them your money. And then if millions of people don't give them money, they'll either change their ways or go out of service. Now, the only reason that I feel that is justified, in my personal opinion, for people to be outraged at them trying to perpetuate or make Jesus gay is because they would never, ever do this to Muhammad. Never. No, they would never. You cannot make fun of, you cannot talk about. Barack Obama wouldn't even mention Islamic terrorists out of his mouth, probably once. You can't say nothing about Islam. Or you're considered to be Islamophobic. What about Christphobic? Christphobia. You can make fun of Christ. You can do all these things. I think it's preposterous. Now, my whole stance on it, I'm not protesting, signing no petition for nothing. I'm going to cancel my membership because I have a membership with Netflix, and I said I was going to do it. I was going to cancel it last time. If they don't remove this thing, I'm done. I'm taking my payments, my little $12, whatever I pay a month, and I'm taking off of Netflix because you didn't want too far. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's it's something bigger than this, right? Some people just think, oh, it's a little parody. Why would there be a parody that Jesus had to be gay? Why couldn't Jesus be a gangster? How about you have Jesus being black? I mean, you know what I'm saying? They don't want to make a parody about that, but they want him to be gay. This speaks to what I believe is the fringe group of the LGBTQ community agenda to normalize deviancy, sexuality, whatever they want to perceive it as. And they want to make that and push that on Jesus and push that on everybody else and force you to accept whatever people are doing in their own personal life, which is not my business of doing. But let me say this. Netflix is doing this. Now, Netflix has already gone off the rails on other things, but they're doing this. And then you add that to trans athletes, right? These transgender athletes that are just beating the brakes off of biological women. Where are the feminists? Where are they at? You're talking about women's rights. Where are you? This is a violation of women's rights. Let me say this for anybody watching. If you get in your feelings about this, I'm sorry. I told you I was uncut when I first came on here. Listen, there's only two genders, male and female. You may identify as a woman, but you ain't a woman. You don't have that thing every month, and you cannot produce children. Those are essentials to being a woman. At the end of the day, you're gonna still have to go to the doctor and get your prostate checked if you're a man. You may identify as a woman, but as soon as the medical facility or you get injured in a car accident and the medical staff have to retrieve you from a vehicle, they're not going to take you to the hospital and say, oh, I guess we got to operate on this person like that. They're going to treat you what your biology represents. Now, I'll say this. That doesn't give people right to disrespect anybody. If you want to be a girl, hey, I ain't involved in that, but I'll treat you with respect. If your name is Lily now and it used to be Sean, Lily, I'll call you Lily. Just don't force it on me, right? You can do you. I'm going to do me. I respect you. You respect me. But when you start to push beyond bounds and start to infringe on other people's rights, that's when there is a problem. People shouldn't infringe on transgender people's rights, and transgender people shouldn't infringe on biological women's rights. Now, let me tell you why I think this is an issue as it relates to athletics. When you're born as a man, you're biologically just stronger. I don't care what nobody say. You've been essentially muscle density, muscle mass, bone density, lung capacity. You've been literally working out on steroids your whole life. And then all of a sudden you take hormones and you're going to lose some strength. You lose a percentage of your strength. One doctor that I listened to said you don't lose any leg strength. So for women going into cycling, they're going to dominate. The men who transition to women in cycling are going to dominate. Obviously, they've broken records before. We've seen the national record. I think it was a UK record that was broken. A young lady here, identified now as a lady here in Tucson, was racing in Tour de Tucson and ended up winning first place by a millisecond, I think, to a biological woman. Won first place and pretty much knocked the girl out of the running to win her first place title. You're talking about bodybuilding. Killing the records. You're talking about the rugby player. I made a video about this on my YouTube as well. A rugby player that just beast mode. Beast mode. I'm talking about 3-4 times the size of these girls, throwing them around like rag dolls. The MMA fighter that punched that biological girl and broke her eye socket. I mean, these things are very, very unfair. And I'm going to touch on this real quick before we open it up to the phone calls. The drag queen story time. Now, like I said, if you want to take your children to that, I ain't telling you what to do with your children. But I do have an opinion about it. There is no reason, in my personal opinion, for men to be dressing up like women, impersonating women, mind you. They're flamboyantly impersonating women and then doing that at schools all over the country, distorting the image of women in these young people's minds. That's not right. To me, that's not right. Don't involve kids in this sexual confusion. Don't do that to these children. To me, that's a form of child abuse. But they're pushing that, and the media will never talk about that. And everybody want to water it down. And I'm going to say this, and this is very controversial, then we moving on to the callers. This is going to lead, when you get people to inch, they take them out. I'm talking about the fringe. Not the people that just want to live their life. I'm talking about the fringe. Before you know it, pedophilia is going to be opened up. People are going to be trying to push for more acceptance on pedophilia because they're going to say, well, you love who you love. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I want you to call in the next segment, talk to me about anything that I said on the radio show. 602-277-KTAR, 602-277-KTAR. I want to hear from you after the break. I'll be back.
Brandon Tatum, KTAR News, 92.3 FM.